Welcome to From the Shed End podcast with myself, T.Dot. As always, thank you very much for joining me. Now, before we get into the content, please go and subscribe to the channel. Let me know your thoughts in the comments as well. And also hit the Linktree link in the description that will take you to all our social accounts and all our podcast episodes as well. Episode 76 is the latest podcast that's out. You can get that on Spotify or Apple Podcasts as well. So make sure you give that a listen. But let's get back to last night's game. Chelsea 0, Man City 1. A game that really could have gone either way when you look back on it. We were unlucky in some ways and we were our own worst enemy in some ways as well. But let's start off with the lineup, because it was a lineup that I kind of predicted during the podcast episode yesterday. Kepa in goal was a given, obviously Mendy being injured. Cesar Azpilicueta at right back. We had Thiago Silva, Koulibaly, Marco Correa. We had Denis Zakaria, Mateo Kovacic, Hakim Ziyech, Raheem Sterling and Christian Pulisic, and Kai Havertz down the middle. Now, I'm happy with that lineup. I thought that lineup was really good. I thought it was the lineup that I thought we would see. Obviously, I had Amari Hutchinson in the lineup as well, my predicted lineup, but you know, a massive gamble for Graham Potter to do that against Man City as well. So it's expected that he wasn't going to start, but you know, obviously, on hindsight, he probably should have started. But the lineup, maybe Azpilicueta would have been my question mark, and I think I said that during the episode that we recorded as well. But overall, I thought the lineup looked solid. It looked like we could retain the ball with that team there. You know, I thought Denis Zakaria in the middle with Kovacic worked well. You know, no Jorginho, no Mason Mount, who was obviously injured during the training session before the game. But we looked really good going into the game. I thought we started the game really well on the front foot. There's a lot more creativity, a lot more getting the ball forward. Obviously, you can see during the game, and especially as the game progressed, the injuries are now playing a massive factor. And speaking of injuries, Raheem Sterling comes off after 2 minutes of play last night. Now, we spoke about injuries, the medical team, on yesterday's video. Something is definitely happening at Chelsea, because not just one but two players injured last night. Obviously, you can add a third player if that's Mason Mount as well. But Christian Pulisic and Raheem Sterling, let's start with him first. It looks like a hamstring injury. Now, if it is a hamstring injury, you'd expect him to be out for at least 3, maybe 4 weeks, a month's worth of football. Again, we spoke about the period that's coming up. We have Fulham, Palace, we've got Man City on Sunday. We also have Liverpool at the end of the month, I think on the 21st of January. Massive games coming up over the next couple of weeks, and to lose not just one but maybe 2 players who you would expect may or may not start a couple or all of those games. There's question marks that have to be asked around not just the medical staff, but also Graham Potter, who I still feel doesn't really know his best 11, doesn't really know how to utilise the squad that he has at his disposal. Yes, there's a lot of injuries. We understand that, you know, Reece James, N'Golo Kante, Ben Chilwell, to name a couple. We could go on and on. But you still have players at your disposal. You still have players that can do something. And we've seen that yesterday in the first half. We've seen how well we could play. As I said, we were getting the ball, we were working the ball. At some points, we were shutting down Manchester City, who look like they do want to try and give the ball to Haaland. That is the ultimate aim for Man City at the moment. Get the ball to Haaland, let Haaland do his magic. Jobs are good. But it didn't work. You know, we kept him quiet. We kept Haaland very quiet, especially in that first half. You know, Man City, without those options, and I think if you look back to the Man City of, you know, 2 seasons ago, even last season before they had Haaland, you know, that front three that they would always switch and, you know, was always intricate, and they could flip around and they could play across the whole of the front three, you know, the Mahrez, the Grealishes, the Fodens, the Sterlings. It worked. It worked for them. You know, they could switch around. It was hard for a centre back to understand who they needed to mark, because they're switching all the time. Whereas now, you know, you saw in the first half, you know, Foden was very non-existent throughout most of that first half. Haaland, I don't think, had a touch on the ball in the first 20 minutes of the game. So we done our job. We done what we needed to do in the game, and I thought we done that really well. But then as the game progressed, as I said, you know, Sterling comes off. Then 15 or 20 minutes later into the game, you know, Christian Pulisic, brilliant tackle by John Stones, but he comes off as well. And one of the things that I've mentioned, especially to a few Chelsea fans, you know, on WhatsApp or whenever we've been speaking, is some of these players just don't look built for the Premier League. You look at Kai Havertz, he looks like a feather. You know, the fact that he doesn't really get stuck in. He's not one of these, you know, traditional. I mean, he's not a number 9. He's not a number 10. You know, he's not one of these players that you can see going up against a Van Dijk and winning the ball. He's not built to play, in my opinion, in the Premier League. Same as Christian Pulisic, very dainty, doesn't really carry much muscle, doesn't really look strong enough to be played in a role that he needs to play in the Premier League, which is a very competitive league. You know, as I said, really good tackle, very unfortunate for Christian Pulisic. Again, the extent of the injury is unknown at the moment. But if it's a long-term injury or even a couple of weeks, it's another player, a big key player that will be losing over a crucial period of time. Just obviously coming back into the Premier League as well when we need to pick up points. You know, we're looking at 10th at the moment. You know, with 10 points, I think, off top 4, where I think 10 points off relegation. Let's be real. You know, we're at that point now where we are slap bang in the middle of the table. So, really worrying times to lose another 2 players, potentially third with Mason Mount, but hopefully back for Sunday's game. In terms of the first half performance, I felt we'd done enough, but I thought we can do better, because you look at Kai Havertz, who had a handful of chances, constantly looking to press the ball, kick the ball back, rather than take players on and try and at least give Ederson something to work with or work for. And I think we had the opportunity to do that in the first half. How we didn't score is unbelievable, but this is Chelsea and we do things by hard times. We don't do things the easy way. So I think looking at the team, there wasn't much we could do in that first half, but retain the ball, keep Man City quiet, and hope we can go with a 0-0 at half time. But you do know Man City, and you know that Man City and Pep will always have a second gear, a third gear, a fourth gear, a fifth, or even a sixth gear that they can go into. And they did that at half time with the 2 changes that they made. They brought on Akanji and they brought on Rico Lewis, the youngster for Man City, who is going to be a very good player, whether it's at Man City or elsewhere. I've watched him a couple of times now, live and on the TV, and he looks a very good player. And yeah, he's got a bright future ahead of him at Man City. But those 2 subs changed everything for Man City. Everything, you know. And then when Grealish comes into the fold, it shows you the golfing in quality and class that we don't really have that at the moment with the injuries. Man City do have that. They can bring on Mahrez. They can bring on Jack Grealish. You know, they can bring on even Rico Lewis, who's done really well. But yeah, it's one of those ones for me that we just didn't look like we were ever going to score. We don't create enough chances. There was a stat that came up before the game that showed how little chances we make, expected goals, the goals that we are scoring. You know, Haaland has more goals than Chelsea at the moment, so it tells you that we're not creating the chances, and that is a massive worry for Graham Potter. For the goal itself, I mean, it's inexcusable, really. I don't understand how Kepa doesn't attempt to save that ball going across to Mahrez. You know, I know there's a lot of blame for Marco Correa for the goal, but Kepa has to save that ball. He has to. The ball's coming over him at speed, at pace, which is understandable. But at least stick an arm out. At least put your body, throw your body. It's just basic goalkeeping. Just put your body in front of the ball, stop it from getting beyond the goalkeeper. Marco Correa could probably do more at that point, but it shouldn't get to him. It shouldn't get to Mahrez. It shouldn't be a point where. And a good defender second guesses that your keeper isn't going to get that ball. That's another thing. As a defender, as a left back or a right back, which I've played before, you've got to second guess that your goalkeeper is going to make a mistake and fumble this, and you've got to be in the right position. You've got to be ready to clear the ball, stop the ball, whatever the case is. And he just didn't do that. He sort of hesitates and stops his run slightly, and it just allows Mahrez the chance to get the goal. Brilliant balling by Jack Grealish. We have to give him that as well. Credit to them. But Kepa has to save that. He has to save it. There's no ifs or buts. And the worrying thing with Kepa is he done the same thing by almost removing his hand again as the ball fizzes in. He removed it again for a second time after the goal. Could have been 2-0. So whether that's goalkeeping coach issues or just the fact that Kepa's just not on the ball, I don't know. But the subs that we brought on, I mean, we haven't mentioned Aubameyang, and I think it's probably good we don't mention Aubameyang, but I'm going to have to now. I've mentioned his name, but Patrick Aubameyang being subbed on, I think, for Raheem Sterling as I said, a couple of minutes into the game. I can't believe how poor Aubameyang's been since, let's say, October. Clearly a Tuchel signing, clearly out of favour with Graham Potter. The subbing on and subbing off is never a good thing. If you think back a couple of seasons ago when it was Callum Hudson-Odoi and the same thing happened to him, and he didn't really feature much in the squad after that, really. You would probably say that Patrick Aubameyang, if not this window, which I doubt it, in the summer would definitely not be at Chelsea. He's someone that just doesn't look happy at the club. Hasn't really put in a shift, doesn't really make them runs anymore. Credit to him, the only thing he did do a couple of times was track back when we needed that extra bit of defensive duties in there, but apart from that, he didn't do anything. And to get subbed off after you've been subbed on, it tells you that the manager or Potter isn't really keen on what you're doing. He doesn't really favour you. And the subs didn't really make sense anyway to me. You look at, Chukwuemeka came on. He done a really good job. I was really impressed with Chukwuemeka. I thought he'd done a really good job when he came on. He's got the power, the drive to get that ball forward, and, very unlucky to hit the post. But we're relying on these players. And I've always said, let's play the youngsters. I said it before offline. I've said it on other videos, other podcasts as well. But this probably is the time to start playing these youngsters and giving Amari Hutchinson, giving Lewis Hall, who came on and done really well and was taking players on. Something that Marco Correa failed to do in the game was actually get the ball forward and take players on, get that ball into the box. And, Lewis Hall attempts to do that at every given opportunity. He done it in the Carabao Cup game against Man City. He done it last night when he came on. Chukwuemeka done exactly the same thing. Amari Hutchinson, you can tell there's a player in there. Whether it was the instructions that were given to him, but he did seem a bit reserved in trying to get that ball forward and obviously didn't have much time to do that as well. But Conor Gallagher as well, let's give him his credit. I mean, I know he's a bull in a china shop at times. He likes to just get stuck into people. Sometimes that works. Sometimes, that erratic pressing that he does, he's very he's just everywhere. And he does pick up cards because of that, just get a lot of bookings. But even him coming on and giving that energy, lifting the crowd, we needed that last night. And I think the thing that let us down was obviously the creative side of things, the creativity, getting the ball in the box, someone who's clinical in front of goal. If we had that and we played the youngsters that we put on last night, I think we have a very good chance of scoring some goals, and I think that's our letdown at the moment. One hand, one side of it, Graham Potter's hand's being forced because he's got, at least 10 injuries, I think, now at the moment. All key first team players that you would almost expect to see in a lineup. But on the second hand, you've got a bunch of youngsters on the bench that you could be playing, you could be starting, giving them a chance. And I think on Sunday, we have to do that. We have to give Lewis Hall a chance. We have to give Carney Chukwuemeka a chance. We have to give Amari Hutchinson a chance. I'd even put Conor Gallagher in and amongst that mix. Why risk Mason Mount? Pep might rest players. He might see that the Champions League and the Premier League are his ultimate things that he wants, and he might rest a couple of players on Sunday. But I think we just need to go with the emphasis that we're going to try and win as many games as we can now, regardless of the injuries. Graham Potter has a massive job on his hands, and I think he's now at that stage where, yes, I think he's 11 or 12 games into his managerial career at Chelsea, but he has to do better. And he has to do better quickly, because this isn't Brighton where you can finish 10th, you can finish 11th or 12th and come out and you'll be praised for finishing 10th or 11th. This is Chelsea where you're expected to get top four, you're expected to play decent, attractive football, and not to say that this has been happening under Thomas Tuchel, because the football under Thomas Tuchel, especially prior to, especially before he got sacked, was never good football. It wasn't attractive football. But we need to get back to that way. And I think we are going to get there. But we still need to be doing better in games. We need to be get better in games right now, as opposed to, let's say, we all know we're in a rebuild. We know that. It's clear as day. But we need to do better. We need to do better in the games. Not win them all, but it's the football. Again, I think I used this term when it was Lampard in charge. It's the manner in which we're losing games. Not talking about Man City, I'm talking about how we allow teams to capitalise on our mistakes, i.e. Kepa, against last night. Even against Forest, we allowed Forest back into the game. There's been games that we've watched and you look, you know, I think it's 1 win in 7 now. All those games where we've allowed teams to either dominate the game. Look at Brighton, how they dominated us. You know, all those games where we're not playing decent football, and we have a better squad arguably than Brighton. We have a lot of talent in that team to not be able to get results. So yes, I understand we're in a rebuild and there's a process and we have to give it time. And I've always said, for me personally, Graham Potter has 2 summer windows to at least get rid of the squad that he doesn't want and bring in the players that he does want. It looks like he's doing that with some of the signings that we're seeing, but there's still a part of me that thinks we should be playing better football now and we should not be 10th. So it's a hard kind of very thin line. You know, it's a double-edged sword. Yes, we need the injuries to come back. Yes, we need someone like Reece James and Chilwell, but if they don't come back, then we still need to be playing competitive football. You know, and that just shows you the lack of quality that we've had over the years, the wrong signings that we've brought in, you know, the lack of depth that we've had. So there's a lot of question marks under Graham Potter, but we do have to caveat a lot of that with he hasn't had much time with the squad that he wants to bring in terms of summer signings or, you know, the January window. So there's still a lot he needs to do, but I do feel even his press conferences don't fill me with joy at the moment. I'll be honest. You know, he gives me a lot of Ollie vibes. He feels like he's in a job that is way too deep for him. And you know, if he's not careful, he'll sink. So, you know, I think we just have to obviously give him the time, back the manager as you do as a fan. But there's a lot of warning red flags currently showing for me at the moment that tells me that he might just be out of his depth a little bit. All will be revealed when Todd Bowley allows him to sign who he wants to sign, if we can get the correct signings in. Injuries, you know, the injured players come back. We'll see how he gets on. But at the moment, nothing has filled me with joy to make me think that appointing Graham Potter was the correct decision to do at the time. I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong, but we'll have to see. Let me know your thoughts in the comments around Graham Potter. How do you think he's doing? Do you think that he's had enough time? Do you feel like he should be doing better? Let me know your thoughts in the comments as well. Also about last night's performance against Manchester City. Some will say it was a good performance. Some are saying that we should have done better. I'm in the middle. I think we should have done better in the first half. We allowed them to come back in the second half and dominate the game. And that is the difference between Premier League winners and people that just want to try and get top 4. So let me know what you think in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. This has been T.Dot. Until next time, stay safe and thank you very much for watching.